Okay, so right about now, we'll be heading straight into the first keynote session. Please, I beg your pardon. Let me go up the stage. We'll be having the first keynote session, and it'll be talking about, the person facilitating is Dave, Supply Chain Architect UK. We'll be talking about designing for excellence, integrating strategy into organizational DNA. Media team, are you ready? Thank you. Please keep your face glued to the screen, and we'll have it run through.
Dave Food is a strategist, consultant, and educator with over 30 years of global experience advising executives, businesses, entrepreneurs. He helps organizations future-proof their strategies by integrating visionary thinking, emerging technologies, and market foresight. Passionate about unlocking potential, Dave focuses on aligning people, processes, and technology to drive growth and innovation. As a leading supply chain strategist, he encourages forward-looking approaches that go beyond traditional analytics, enabling businesses to anticipate change and seize future opportunities. His insights bridge the gap between today's challenges and tomorrow's possibilities, making him a sought-after speaker and advisor across industries and ministries. Dave also teaches postgraduate courses at top international universities, supervising research projects on the intersection of strategy, innovation, and transformation.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to be with you today at Performex. I am really grateful to be able to spend time with you today, and you're spending time with me. And so, before I introduce myself, I really want to set the scene and to raise the bar. If you're going to spend 30 minutes with me, then I want to absolutely make sure that you're going to get the best out of that time. And by what I mean by saying that is that I hope you will take some notes. I hope that I will provoke you for some action to be able to think about doing some things in your business, in your strategy, in your marketplace to make a difference. So please do take some notes. Otherwise, we've just wasted 30 minutes together. I hope I am going to provoke you to action today. My name's Dave Food, and I am a specialist in supply chain, I guess. And I'd love to open that up. Some of you would probably think that, what have I got to do with supply chain? Whether you're an entrepreneur in a small company, 1, 2, 10, 15 people, or whether you're a large business who's sourcing from around the world, you have supply chain as part of what you do, whether it's delivering products to your customers or whether it's sourcing from your suppliers. Supply chain is a key part of what you do. And so let me introduce myself and share my screen. Just let me click on that. There we go. So I'm going to be talking about supply chain, and I hope that you have thought about the supply chain that you have. Let me just briefly introduce myself. I'm going to do a bit more about that later, but this is my CV as a word cloud. And just as a throwaway idea, let me encourage you, whatever you do, whenever you want to think about what am I saying and how am I saying it, let me encourage you to think about using word clouds. Take whatever it is, your web page, your document, your strategy, your CV, create a word cloud and see what it says. Because basically a word cloud will throw away all the small words, and the words that repeat themselves most often will appear as the largest things. This summarizes me, I guess. I'm into business development, market development, education, supply chain consultancy, and teaching at university, as well as leading a church. And I guess this is a great way of just analyzing and thinking about, does it say what you want to say? So there's a throwaway thought. I'm supposedly an expert in supply chain, as you can see from the corners of the slides here. And if you want to connect with me, please do connect with me on LinkedIn. Follow me there. My intention over the next 30 minutes is to go through this agenda. I want to talk through the fact that supply chain matters, to talk about inventory, how planning can help you, how you can take supply chain to lead you to competitive advantage, and how you have to make your team collaborate together to drive collaborative thinking for your business. Now, why does supply chain matter? Well, supply chain matters because at the end of the day, the products that you are sourcing, whether it's raw materials, finished goods, or something else, is coming from somewhere. And the further it comes away from where you are, the longer the lead time, the slower your decisions will be. And as a consequence, you have to pay attention to where you source from, what kind of prices you're paying, and how that supply chain is going to work. We live in a world where supply chain disruption is all around us. We saw that in COVID. We've seen that with global tariff changes going on right now. And we also see the impact of delay in terms of shipping. And if we do not pay attention to this, we will upset our customers. Our customers will go somewhere else. They are looking for reliable supply. And if we're supplying them on a reliable basis at a price that they're willing to pay, then that means we've got good, repeatable business. If uncertainty starts to creep into the way we do things, we will lose sales. We will lose reputation. Customer satisfaction will drop. And that damaged reputation will cost us, whether that's in share price, whether that's in reputation, whether that's in the online orders that come to your business. So we need to take proactive measures to mitigate the impact of any crisis that might happen, to be prepared for change, and to adapt and respond in ways that help us to drive better business thinking. The impact of these kinds of events are things like disruptions in ports, increasing oil prices, uncertainty of supply. We live in a world which has got wars going on in various different locations. Those wars will cause us to have disrupted supply chain. Instead of sourcing from the Ukraine, now we're having to source from somewhere else. And we need to understand those risks, identifying where they are, responding to them where we can, and being prepared where we can to be resilient as a provider of services to our customers. Those storms and those disasters will probably disrupt and create uncertainty. That uncertainty means we need to be less fragile than we are, and learning from having to be resilient as a supply chain will help us to be more competitive and to take that competitive advantage forward. Let me go back to some business basics just for a moment here, just to help you with thinking about this. In any business, in most businesses, we're thinking about making a profit. Even charities, we still need to make enough profit to be able to survive. If we're not making a profit, we're making a loss. And if we're making a loss, that loss needs to be funded from somewhere. And so let me think about the key actors in your board. The CEO, he or she, is primarily focused upon the strategy of the business, the direction it's heading in, and to ensure that business is persistently going to make profit. How does that happen? Well, the CFO is trying to manage costs. Chief Financial Officer is trying to manage costs, trying to make sure that if costs are at least stable or going down, that's going to be good from their point of view. The Chief Revenue Officer is also focused on sales and pushing revenues up. Then what happens? Well, if revenues are going up and costs are going down, the CEO is happy, the shareholders are happy, because profit is being created. Martin Christopher, who's a professor of supply chain, said this. He said, in the 21st century, companies will not compete on products and prices. They'll compete on supply chains and services, which is why I've got the Chief Supply Chain Officer as a fourth fundamental part of the provision of what we drive and how we drive business. Consequently, it's important to make sure that we understand where supply chain sits. Is it just a cost driver serving the CFO, and it's about reducing costs? Or is it about innovation, change, and driving revenue and profit and supporting the Chief Revenue Officer? These are some of the things you need to think about as a business, whether you're a one-man band, in which case you're performing all these roles, or whether you've got a board and you're having these discussions at the board level. So something to take away and think about. Are you driving revenue? Are you innovating? Another professor said, in the 21st century, only the innovative will survive. Well, what happens when a company innovates? Well, if a company innovates, typically revenues go up. That's the plan of innovation. But the problem is that costs go up as well. And therefore, to continue to satisfy shareholders and the CEO, we need to make sure that revenue is going up faster than costs. Therefore, innovation is something that's key to help to drive business. And the challenge with innovation is inventory. Every time you innovate, that means change in your supply chain. Now, let me ask you a question. Is inventory a good thing for your business? Well, you need inventory to be able to support sales. And there are three types of inventory. The first type would be turnover inventory. That's what you buy to sell. Secondly would be safety stock, which is there to protect you against variability. And third element of, say, inventory would be a strategic investment, where maybe you're buying ahead at a certain price. And so inventory challenges are that maybe we have a strategy that says, well, the more inventory we have, the more we can buffer against disruption. But the problem is that is underwritten by holding costs. We have to store it somewhere. We have to insure it. It might have a shelf life, and as a consequence, it decreases in value. And that reduction in value moves through the supply chain. As you move a product through the supply chain closer to the customer, its value to you goes up, its cost goes up. The worst place you can write product off is at the customer. If a customer receives something and it's not of good quality and they return it, that's cost you not just the inventory and the return of the customer and your reputation, but has also cost you in terms of other opportunity costs. So the risk of obsolescence of wasted inventory is absolutely key. And a balanced approach here would be to say, let's get the right levels of inventory to drive our business and to drive our business thinking. And what comes from this is that there are financial risks associated with it. The longer the lead time, the more commitment we have to the inventory that's coming from our suppliers, the slower we can respond. If you're sourcing from a cheap country in terms of cheap supply, that has a long lead time, maybe 9, 11, 13 weeks. If you want to change the specification of the product you're ordering, you have to wait 13 weeks before that new product will arrive. And that has a level of financial risk. And ensuring timely delivery is absolutely key to make sure that you are able to service your customers in good and right ways. So that right inventory requires that you are minimizing costs whilst meeting and serving your customer demands, but also thinking about and understanding the analytics of what's going on here. Whether you're a small business and using Excel spreadsheets, or whether you're a large company, the kind of companies I often work with, who has billion-dollar businesses around the world and is using advanced analytics to help to understand the forecast of the future, then you need to get hold of the data to help to drive this. And that requires better planning, and better planning will require increased data and an increased quality of the staff that you're using to help to drive this. So getting the right inventory requires better planning. What do I mean by better planning? Well, better planning is looking forward, trying to work out what it is that you are hoping to deliver for your customers, and then preparing for that. Again, from Martin Christopher, let me quote from him again. He said, "We're only as good as our suppliers are, and therefore your suppliers should be an asset to your supply chain to help you to be able to deliver better product in a more timely manner at a better price to your customers and to your supply chain." So one of the first things you need to think about is improving visibility of what's going on in your supply chain. Now, I'm not talking about being able to see everything everywhere all at once. That's a film that came out recently, and those kind of things will drive you crazy. You'll become hyperactive if you respond to every little change that's going on in your supply chain. But whatever the size of the business, think about your most significant raw material, your most significant product. The one that is, in Pareto terms, the 80-20 rule, 80% of your business. Which products do you need to pay attention to? Do you know where they come from? Do you know who supplies them? Do you have an alternative supplier should something go wrong? Having visibility and control over some of the key elements of your supply chain will be key to ensuring future supply. And being able to be proactive in the response, that when a change comes, you are ready for it, means that you're able to adapt and respond to your customers' requirements. Let me make a couple of suggestions here as a story. Let's imagine that you're signing up a new customer who's going to take a further 10% of your business on your main product, maybe coming from Turkey or from South Africa. You know that your supplier has a limit to how much they can make, and it's a seasonal product. Well, if you start looking forward, you might suddenly realize this increase of 10% sales with this new customer is going to take you over the threshold of your supplier's capacity. You can reach out to them and say, can they work overtime? Can they put an additional shift in? Or can they respond to that? But if they can't, because that's the limit of their factory, you need to find an alternative source, and you need to give yourself the time to do that. Giving yourself visibility will enable you to be responsive and adaptive in your supply chain thinking. And part of that comes from having a digital footprint. We live in a digital world, and it's amazing now what data we can receive through our mobile phones or through our business systems. But to be able to take that crucial data and help it to inform the decisions you are making, tracking where you need to track and analyzing where you need to analyze, will ensure that you are able to pull the levers of your supply chain to ensure that you're continuing to make profit. Let me give you an example. I love to give you stories that will help here. Let's imagine that you've got some product that is going out of shelf life. In 3 months' time, it will be unsaleable. Well, what are you going to do about that? Well, firstly, you need visibility that that stock is running out and you are consuming it at a rate that means it will not be consumed by then. So take a view on that and say, okay, what alternative markets can we create? Can I adjust my pricing position to be able to discount that and sell that? And therefore drive demand onto products where you can sell them, clear them, replace them, and then move to a new product as that new product comes to market. A key element of driving better planning decisions is the quality of data. And it doesn't matter whether you've got 2, 10, 1,000 people in your business. I would encourage you by saying the accuracy of your data really matters. If you go to a beautiful restaurant, eat a beautiful meal, you will find the chef has done a great job, but he's done a great job with fantastic ingredients. You, as your executives in your business, need to think about the quality of your data, paying attention to it, and helping to drive better thinking. And that will come from investing in training. Do people understand the quality of the data? Where does it come from? If it's wrong, what to do about it? If it's right and it's coming from a different different source, questioning your supplier. If you're integrating your data with your data systems with your supplier's data systems, and you find an error, pick it up and cover it, because otherwise you will be making poor decisions made based upon poor data. And I want to encourage you to be able to make reliable decisions, because they will be profitable decisions. So how can this data be useful to help to drive better competitive advantage? Well, it comes from thinking about a number of things. The first thing is, what does the data mean? Getting perfect data after the decision has been made is of no use to you. Sometimes we have to make decisions with imperfect data, especially in supply chain. And we'll find that we need to interpret the data. We'll need to look at it and go, okay, that was data that came from 3 months ago. Let's see if we can find an update to that data. And being able to analyze the data. There are an enormous number of tools now, including AI, that will help us to be able to analyze data in more creative and effective ways. And some of the companies now are using AI to analyze their decision processes. Let me encourage you, just pause before you start jumping into AI, because if you are using AI to make decisions with rubbish data, you will make rubbish decisions. And that will cost you money. That will cost you reputation. I have been involved in a couple of projects where they have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in AI projects, and then realized 6 months later that the data was poor, and consequently the project was completely canned. First thing is to look at the decisions you're already making. See if you can use AI to help to drive better decision making. But then use your planners, use your executive insight to be able to make those informed decisions. AI needs to support what you do, not replace what you do. So let me go back to some basics. Number one, what's driving your performance? the KPIs, the key performance indicators that you are measuring your business by. If, for example, you decide to create a forecast and you measure forecast accuracy, well, how far ahead should you be looking? Well, your forecast accuracy should be focused at least as far as your longest lead time, because that's the thing that will constrain the speed of your supply chain. And your frameworks of success will be mapping some of your KPIs and adapting your business behaviors to help to drive better business decisions. Those decisions become data-driven rather than gut-driven. Sometimes as executives, we feel something, but the data says something different. Well, use the data to test your gut reactions and then go back and test them again and then test them again. Part of the key here would be looking at a forecast, trying to understand what the future says. I spend most of my time talking about the future, whether that's in church or whether that's in business. I find that I'm looking ahead, trying to respond to what's coming. If we want to play and lead with competitive advantage, we need to stay ahead of the competition. A book by Ken Blanchard said this, Raving Fans. He said, number one, understand what you do. Number two, understand what your customer wants. And then number three, deliver 101% customer service. Some great simple things in there you might want to take away and think about. But look forward, work out what the future contains, analyze the mix of the businesses coming to you, and where possible, try and anticipate market changes, new competitors to the marketplace, competitors leaving, new products, innovations coming. And this will all come to a place where you as a business, as an executive team, need to be collaborative in your thinking. Collaborative in your thinking, because if you don't collaborate, you will compete internally. And internal competition is the last thing that you need. So you need to deal with some things there. And that includes, in my experience, dealing with personal ego. Sometimes we have to put our ego aside and say, for the greater good, for the good of the business, for the good of our customers, for the good of the family, for the good of community, society, and maybe even the planet, we need to think differently about our egos. And then if we can be honest with one another, how do we communicate risk? If you've got a sales officer who is uncertain about a new future order, but it's a large enough order that he needs to tell the supply chain that it's coming, otherwise you will not be able to fulfill it. That needs to be brought into your plans in a way that is meaningful to the business. Putting a whole 100% of the order 3 months in advance and then it doesn't come in means you will have excess inventory. Not putting it in time will mean you upset that customer and let them down. Open communication requires that we have a common, transparent approach to thinking around risk. And collaboration will bring cohesiveness instead of competition. And that will drive towards a better alignment at a board level. The CEO, the chief operational officer, the chief finance officer, they need to be aligned. Whenever significant change comes, if you add a person to your board, then look at the KPIs that you have. Are you competing? Do those KPIs need to be changed? And how do you help to drive better decision making at a board level into the teams that will drive success to a unified business that will deliver customer capability in excellent time? And this particularly means that we look forward and think about what future sales are coming, what future insights can we pull into, what is our strategy? Hopefully as a business, you're thinking not just about next year, but maybe over the next 2, 3, 4 years. Where is the new market opportunity going to come from? Where are we building new market capability? And when we're delivering that capability, are we also investing in the ability to service that customer in a meaningful and useful way? Enhanced customer satisfaction will mean your customers stay with you and they're willing to pay slightly more because you are delivering excellent service in an excellent way. And these effective strategies will come from better supply chains managed in a better way. We can't rely on gut reaction. Most of you have probably been recruited and probably in your teams because of your experience. But you know, that experience comes in a data-driven world, and we need to allow data to help us to drive better decisions. Allow our gut or our instinct to test and validate and say, why is the data saying that? quite often you'll find that the data is saying that because the data needs to be adjusted and improved. It's not complete. There's something missing. And that's where our gut reaction really does help us. But striking a balance between better data-driven decisions will lead us to a place where we are delivering great value. And I'd like to return, as I'm wrapping up, to thinking about the CEO agenda and what keeps the CEO awake at night. Whether the Chief Executive Officer is focusing on margin pressure and ensuring that shorter product life cycles do not drive unprofitable business, or whether it's customer expectations. Our customers expect the right product at the right time at the right price. And that requires that we've got inventory in the right location to help to service those kind of things. Customer expectations are going up. They're expecting things cheaper, faster, and better. And there's a trade-off there that we need to consider. Do we want to be the best, or do we want to be the fastest? They cost different things. Risk management is something that has been taken all the way to the boardroom now. If you, as a business, have a failure somewhere within your supply chain, it will end up in the boardroom, and you could potentially end up in court as a consequence. And so to avoid that, you need systems that give you visibility into your supply chain. These are the kind of things that keep the CEO awake at night. And you often do it with partners. You might have a logistics partner, somebody else who's a franchise deliverer of your products. And it's about the operational coordination that helps to drive a different thinking around supply chains. So these are the things that have kept people awake at night, and these are the things that I hopefully have addressed in the last 30 minutes. Hopefully you've written down some homework, but let me wrap things up. I hope today that you will feel free to connect with me. I blog on LinkedIn on a weekly basis. Please feel free to connect with those blogs, or follow me on LinkedIn. But my conclusions from what I've shared with you today is, number one, I hope that you understand the challenges that you're wrestling with. You've identified them. You're working with your team to understand how to minimize risk, to drive efficiency, and to drive your supply chains. Hopefully you are also enlarging and thinking forward about the strategies of your supply chain, and thinking about how you can leverage new functionality, new capability, new data points that will help to drive using better technology to create a prioritized plan. Now, I didn't say at the beginning, but I describe myself often as a reluctant academic, so I'm going to give you a little bit of homework. And these are my take-home activities. What are the opportunities for you? Well, I'd love you to understand your own risk. What is it that goes on in your supply chain, and how can you minimize that? Or the opportunities to your business. How can you develop a conversation with your team about risk and minimizing that in your supply chains? Or from a technology point of view, how can you improve the visibility of your supply chain to help to drive better thinking and a better approach, maybe a more resilient supply chain? Let me encourage you to prioritize planning, because that's one of the things that will help you to differentiate your business from your competitors. If you'd like to read a little more about this, then hopefully you'll find one of the two books that I've released this year on the marketplace and how to respond to it, with activities and questions to help to drive that. It's been a privilege to be with you and to be with Akin, my beloved friend. I hope that you have an excellent second day to your conference. Please do press in, make difference, talk to people, share, and in doing so, change the world that you live in for good. Thank you.